Welcome to Anti-Woke and Autistic. Do you sometimes feel fat? Have you been reading among the fat acceptance crowd? Fat is not a feeling? Take a look at one example of this. Amanda Martinez Beck is about 350 pounds. She has 22,000 followers on Instagram, which may not seem like a lot compared to other fat influencers, but many other bigger, and I mean in terms of how many followers they have, of course, bigger fat influencers preach the same thing. Newsflash, fat is not a feeling, it's an accessibility issue. Well, says who? Who are you? Who is anybody to dictate when somebody else isn't feeling fat when they say they are? If fat acceptance people have accepted their fatness, are okay with being morbidly obese, feel proud and sexy to live in a large body, have come to terms, come to peace with their body, why does it bother them so much when somebody who's not so fat, especially somebody who's on the slender size, says they feel fat? Why does that bother them so much? If they truly were okay with being 2 or 3 times the size they should be, why does it offend them? Why does it rattle their cage so much when somebody who's not fat says, I feel fat? Who are you to dictate how somebody else feels? The irony is that fat activists, fat liberationists, accuse other people of being judgmental. They accuse people of being fatphobic. They accuse people of making presumptions, assumptions, conclusions about people they don't know, assuming that they're lazy or that they don't exercise or that they overeat. They accuse people of making assumptions about them, yet here they are dictating to strangers they don't even know that they can't possibly feel fat. I can't say it enough. Who are these fat acceptance people, these women? They're almost always women. Who are they to declare whether somebody feels fat or not? If somebody feels fat, that is their perception. That's a descriptor of their perception. They're not saying, I am fat. They're not saying, I'm a size 22 when they're a size 2. They're saying what they feel. And if they feel a certain way, they're accurate. If they feel, hey, look, if they feel like a grizzly bear, then they feel like a grizzly bear. Doesn't mean they are a grizzly bear. If they feel like a great white shark, they're correct. If they feel like a great white shark. If they say they are a great white shark, or they swim as well as a great white shark, or they have the nose, the smelling capacity of a great white shark, then they're lying or making it up or delusional. But if they say they feel a certain way, they're accurate, especially when, now that might be an extreme example, saying that they feel like a certain animal, but you get my point. I was kind of exaggerating there to drive home a point. But if somebody says they feel fat, they're accurate. Doesn't matter if they're as skinny as a twig. If they feel fat after stuffing themselves with food or after, I don't know, gaining a few pounds, like if they're 124 pounds and over several days they've gained weight from overeating on vacation and they're now up to 129, yeah, it's a relativity issue, not an accessibility issue. If they've gained 5 pounds on a 124-pound body, yeah, they're going to feel fat. If Amanda Martinez Beck gains 5 pounds on her 350-pound body, she's not going to even notice it. Who is she or people like her to tell other people how you feel, how you can feel, and how you cannot feel? Let's look at her next clip here. If fat is not a feeling, but it is, if fat is not a feeling, how can someone tell if they're actually fat? And she goes into this thing here about different types of fatness, different grades of fatness. You can tell if and when you feel, when you fall on the fat spectrum, unbelievable, based on your level of access to clothing and seating. Straight size, small fat, mid fat, super fat, infinite fat. I think she left out one. Large fat. Doesn't large fat come between mid fat and super fat? I think this whole concept of a spectrum of fatness, like small fat, mid fat, large fat, super fat, infinite fat, I think That's their way of dressing up a situation that they deep down inside feel completely horrendously miserable and guilty about and disgusted about. So they come up with these flashy novel descriptors to kind of sugarcoat things. But when you get right down to it, at the end of the day, it's morbid obesity. It's a sickly state of body. She also says, while she goes into this seating access, well, no kidding, if you've gluttoned yourself into the size of 3 people, you are going to have problems with seating access. Well, you know what the solution is. Stop stuffing yourself. Clothing access. Again, if all you can wear are specialty clothes, if you have difficulty finding clothes off the rack, if you have to order all your clothes online or have them specially made, do something about it. Stop accepting your sickly state of morbid obesity and practice portion control. Lose weight. There are effective, proven, safe, sustainable ways to lose weight. Feeling fat when you're not actually fat is fatphobic language. Says who, Amanda? Feeling fat when you're not actually fat is fatphobic language. No. Like I said, if somebody overeats, they're going to feel fat, especially if they don't overeat that often and they're not used to or accustomed to that feeling that you have like 10 pounds of something in you that shouldn't be there. Yeah, you're going to feel fat, especially if it's making the clothes you're wearing uncomfortable. Like if you have a waistband that doesn't stretch very much and you have like a pair of pants that zips up and snaps or some kind or a belt, and of course it's going to start constricting on you if your stomach is beginning to expand from eating a lot of food that you normally don't eat. You're going to feel fat. And if she's offended, if people like her think it's fatphobic, then that means they're overly sensitive and deep down inside, they are miserable with the way their body is, despite what they preach on their platforms. It shouldn't bother them. If she's really at peace with her body, if these fat activists are really okay with being the size of a house, it wouldn't bother them when somebody else who's not overweight says they feel fat. It would just roll off their arms like a little drop of water. It's fatphobic language that devalues the challenges that actually fat folk encounter daily. No, it doesn't. If it devalues, if somebody says I feel fat and they're not fat, and you think it devalues the challenges that fat people experience in day to day living, prove it. Produce some evidence of that. Now, somebody responded to this Instagram post, and he's directing this to Amanda. He says, have you tried losing some weight instead of coming up with a million excuses about how it's just society that's wrong and how you're perfect the way you are? Amanda will never try to lose weight. Amanda preaches, and other influencers just like her, they're always preaching, you're perfect just the way you are. You're perfect just the way you are. Your body is perfect just the way it is. And they direct that towards people who may weigh 400 pounds. If you believe, if they believe their body is perfect just the way it is, the $1 million question is, why would it bother them so much when somebody says, I feel fat? If somebody says they feel a certain way, these fat liberationists, fat acceptance, crazy nutcases are not in any position to declare, to determine how a person feels, especially somebody they've never met. My advice is to these people, stop being so overly sensitive, stop trying to change and overhaul the way people use the English language and work on losing weight, becoming healthier, fitter, more mobile. Always strive for a better version of yourself instead of just giving up, quitting, and then preaching to the world that you're perfect the way you are. No, you're not perfect the way you are. Nobody's perfect. Work on losing weight instead of being a quitter. Quitters are not inspirational people, and inspirational people are not quitters. That's my message for today. And as always, have a very healthy, fit day. And if you're just beginning a health and fitness journey, you are inspirational. If you've given up and quit, you are the opposite of inspirational.